Good morning, everyone. Super League is dead. Football is alive, kind of. It's still here anyway. The last time I spoke to you, Ahsan, we were chatting about the Champions League, and I think we were talking about Phil Foden, and that was only 6 days ago. And don't tell me that doesn't feel like 4,000 years ago right now. It's what an insane week of football. This whole thing, it set alight, then fizzled out and died within 48 hours. What an absolutely crazy time to be a football fan. Crazy time to be a Manchester City fan when it's not. When is it not crazy? I guess. Yeah, here we are, man. Good morning.
Morning.
And how are you?
I'm all right. I'm still a little, I would say, sore from what's gone on in the last few days.
100%.
I think it's been in a sea of what is self-interest. What we've seen in the last few days, just all the masks have slipped now. We now know who wants what and how they want it. And ultimately, for me, the thing that I would never have let go of, and I'd have walked away from it. I knew by yesterday afternoon that if they'd have done it, I'd have walked. Not for me. Sorry, guys. Like Pep said, it's not competition. If you just get to go there, regardless, you can lose and be shit and still be there. I don't need to watch that. That's Disney. That's not, that's the WWF. That's not what football is, and that's not the football.
It's content.
It's content. Exactly.
That's all it is, man. It's not. I know there's going to be an NFL and NBA fans watching this, and I know you guys love your sport and your league, and no one's going to tell you you're wrong to do that. But it isn't what I know.
Completely different. Yeah, it's culturally.
It isn't what I know. It isn't what I know. It isn't what I love, and it will never be what I love. And you can turn around and say, well, maybe you don't know until you try it. But yeah, you're entitled to say that. But what I will say is look at the reaction to the players. Look at the reaction to people like Pep Guardiola, some of the biggest people in the sport. And there's a reason they so viscerally cared about this, because they understand what makes football what it is. And there's a reason it's the most popular sport in the world. And it's because of that ultra competitive edge. And the second that was gone for me, potentially that was it. I was sat in my head for, do I even watch Manchester City for? I was trying to find a compromise in my head, like, do I just watch the Premier League and that's it, or is even that a step too far? Because all of a sudden these 6 clubs won't take it seriously. So thinking, am I just genuinely out the door now as well? And honestly, that was running through my head for 2 days. And I don't think people have been melodramatic either. I think that's a very understandable stance to take, because football, once again, it just isn't the same with that circumstance, is it? It's different.
It's not football. It's not, I can't express enough how scary it is to me, the thought that you create a league, you invite 12 teams to it, and you go, that's it. That's the league. And we'll just play each other every year, and nobody gets kicked out of it, and everybody gets loads of money. That's not competitive sport. So, and I think that, and this was driven by the Americans. It's obvious it was driven by, well, Woodward has fallen on his sword. So you get the feeling that it's probably driven by him and by FSG and Madrid and Agnelli. And I think that those guys, the level of their self-interest has now completely been exposed, because it's not about anything other than money for them. They'd move the clubs to wherever they need to move them to get the money. And it scares me that it took the noise that it's taken in the last 48 hours for them to back down. And right for the moment, I can't really separate any of them. City, United, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal.
I think you're right. There's going to be kickback from City fans, by the way, going, oh, but our club didn't really want to be in it, and our club and all this, and Don't let, what I will say is you're entitled to your own opinions once again, but we deserve an apology, and for some people that isn't going to be enough, and I understand that. I genuinely understand that. And I saw last night I had a few people on the stream as well chatting. I chatted to Joe Butterfield and Dan Burke and Mooney, and Dan thinks Ferran should resign, and I understand that. Like, I totally understand that. I don't know where I sit, but I understand it. It's not even exaggeration, because and what I would unpick that a little bit more, and I'm not saying that's what I want personally, because I don't really know what I want. And I mean by that, because all I know is, like, we need to hear something, and once I've heard it, I'll be able to tell you if it's enough. But right now, what I do know is that people were lied to. Some of my friends were lied to as well, like people who work for the club. They were left confused and baffled by this as well. Like a chief executive of Manchester City and the owners have failed their staff. They have genuinely failed their staff. Look at Guardiola's reaction to this. They were furious. And once again, what does it say? The disrespect, by the way, to someone like Guardiola and people like Kevin De Bruyne and all these people that make the game, just to keep them entirely out of the loop with this and genuinely drop it on them out of nowhere and expect that they could go out and deal with it to the press. Man, if I was Guardiola, well, Guardiola was.
I think it kind of was. I think it kind of softens the blow, though. I have to be honest with you that I kind of look at it and I go, you know what? I think I'd probably be more upset if Pep and other people were complicit within this. I think the fact that the coaches and the playing staff are going, we only heard on Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening. It's like, you know, all right, fine. We've all been disrespected in an equally shitty manner.
So we can still support them, can't we, as players?
Yeah, totally.
Like, exactly.
Listen, and to go back to this idea of, like, well, you know, Varane should go. I don't think he should go. I don't think that. I don't mean that in a. What I wanted was for them to hit reverse, right?
Yeah.
I wanted them to look at what's happened and go, "This is a shit idea. We don't need to do this. Let's get out of here." Right? They did that. In my head, I didn't think they were going to do that. I was convinced this was happening. So I was fully broken 24 hours ago. So now, therefore, today I sit here and I go, no, you've done the right thing. You don't get applauded for it, but you've done the right thing. And I think in terms of looking at somebody like Ferran and going like, well, he should resign, or Khaldoon should resign, or this person should resign. No, like, I think that you have to take a step back and you have to look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is that there is a reality that this was driven by other clubs. There is a reality that it was presented to City and Chelsea last week as a fait accompli. There is a reality within which, had they said, no, we're not doing this, and it had gone ahead, the commercial ramifications for them would have been massively problematic. So I think that almost, as much as I hate them, they put Joel Glazer's name on our website. I mean, if you want to take a moment to go, where, like, what parallel universe have we ended up in? That's where we've ended up. So after all of that, I don't see today sitting here, I don't see what we achieve by demanding somebody's head should roll. I think, if anything, what I'd like to see is a little bit, and we have to have another conversation. Maybe we won't have time to do it today on this video, but we're definitely going to have a conversation about us as supporters and the nature of fandom, modern fandom, and the yellow ticker breaking news, we've signed this, and the deadline day, and the I want that player, and I want that player.
Yes.
You know, we're part of the pile of things that allows these dickheads to pull moves like this, because we demand certain things, right? We sit there and go, I want that player. We sit there and applaud when clubs break transfer records, right? When Club X pays X for a player, we all stand on our chairs and go, we should do that. If you do that,
we are.
If you demand that, go on.
We're Veruca Salt from Willy Wonka, you know. I want it now, Daddy. That's what we are, aren't we? And for what it's worth, by the way, is I'm not calling for Soriano's head, but I guess I understand why people are, is what I'm saying. I understand why people feel. I understand why people feel visceral. And Big Johnny's just a big love to Big Johnny. He said, I still think that someone like Khaldoon or the Sheikh still needs to apologize. If we let them get away with it, they can still do the same in 10 years or so. And he's absolutely right.
Johnny? He is right. I'll say something. I think that come the end of the season, when Khaldoon's end of season interview comes out, if that man doesn't wholeheartedly apologize, we
Is
can
that
come
not
back
too
and do this
late?
video again.
Is that not too late, man? Does it not have to
No,
be
because
now?
I don't want. No, because
Do you know
I
soon,
don't
by
think
the way? John Henry, the Liverpool owner, has just put out a video on Liverpool's. I'm not sure if you've seen that yet because I know you've had internet problems, but literally as we were going live, John Henry's put a 2-minute video apology on Liverpool's Twitter. So I wonder if he set a precedent there, by the way, because he's released. It's a video of him sat there just recording, apologising to Liverpool fans, so which you obviously haven't had time to see yet.
John Henry needs to put his club up for sale and get the hell out of Premier League football, because those guys are the reason that this happened. So those are the guys that need to get on their websites and apologise. It's Woodward, it's the Glazers, it's Kroenke, right? It's Perez, it's Agnelli, it's these clowns that have been driving this for so long, that have undermined their supporters. I see of course we were undermined. Of course, it was appalling what City did. I want an apology. I want them to say we're sorry. I want a massive mea culpa. I like the way Pep spoke yesterday. I felt like Pep represented.
Felt heard. Us. That mattered.
Yeah,
that mattered.
I felt very heard, and I felt also like, he did something which was, it shows his power within Manchester City Football Club. He went, ask me what you want.
Man. Within football.
He was like, I've got my opinions and I'll say them. And when Pep goes into a press conference and says, I've got my opinions, I'll say them, ask me what you want, he's told the people behind the scenes his opinions. Totally. It's just...
Rohan said the same. He said it was lovely to see Man City players share their opinions on the ESL. Yeah, it was. And you know what? Once again, going back to the Guardiola thing, you do not underestimate. And I think I said it yesterday on Twitter. Like, the idea of Pep speaks up, he is a superstar. Pep is Messi. Pep is Ronaldo. He's that level. And if someone like him speaks from the heart so passionately, football cannot ignore it. It cannot ignore it, and he didn't ignore it. And I do honestly believe, I thought Klopp was decent again for Liverpool. I think he spoke relatively decently about it, but I admire that, but not to the same level. And this is not a competition, by the way. I understand Guardiola had more time. Guardiola had more time to think about it a little bit. He did, definitely, and it was much more. It's complicated. But I admire Klopp. Genuinely spoke up a little bit, but Guardiola obviously had a little bit of time, and Guardiola went for the jugular in a way that I was not expecting him to go. And 100%, I did expect it. I'll be honest. I hold my hands up. I thought he would toe the line a little bit more to Varane, because they've obviously got that friendship, and I think you'd be frustrated, but not like, I'm here to answer whatever you want. And I loved that, because that was was big.
Do you not think that when I saw him spoke, I thought it was over for City? I'll be honest with you. When I saw Pep's press conference, I was like, this is over for City, because the root of what has been proposed is the root of what is wrong, and that is, if you are just invited every year, you don't have to win something, achieve something to go there. The whole thing is a sham, right? And that's the root of what they wanted. And that's the thing that Pep killed on the vine. Within 5 minutes of the question being asked, he's like, that's not football, and that's not sport, and that's not competition. So that's your Super League over. It's dead immediately as soon as he says that, because he's more or less saying to the people behind the scenes, I'm not playing that. That's not a competition, and I'm not playing in it. So
yeah,
I think that we were one day somebody will write a book and we'll find out actually what's happened in the last week, like how this.
There's already articles coming out. Sam Lee did an article this morning, which I've briefly read, and it's little things like apparently a sponsor threatened to quit Liverpool and all this kind of stuff and whatever. And it got really messy very quickly. And I think over the next week it's going to be fascinating. All these details will start to leak from employees and people like that who've got nothing to hide anymore. And it'll all come out. And I think we're going to see the extent of the disvoice and the distrust and all that kind of stuff. Go on, you're going to say?
I know for a fact that representatives from the players of the top 6 clubs had several calls yesterday, and I also know for a fact that then their representatives all got on calls, and I know for a fact that it was then communicated back to the clubs. The players collectively are not having this. They're all looking at their contract and they're going, we are going to be as vocal as we can be without breaching our contracts to say we don't want to do this. So I think that by yesterday afternoon, the clubs were in a position where it was like, this is next level mutiny, because The coaches are going, if, like I said, if Pep said that publicly, can you imagine what he said behind the scenes?
Privately, yeah. I mean,
yeah. If Klopp said that publicly, can you imagine when John Henry and those guys rang Klopp and said, hey, guess what? We're doing this. Can you imagine how those conversations went?
There's a few comments, by the way. Sorry to interrupt. There's a few super chats I want to get onto quickly. I'm going to skim over because there's a few. But Addy said it's amazing to me that Pep has so much freedom. It isn't amazing to me, actually. It's amazing, but also not at the same time, because that's the point with Guardiola. You are in for a penny, you're in for a pound with Guardiola. And the best thing about Pep Guardiola is he doesn't have to bullshit to anyone because he is Pep Guardiola. And that's what makes him brilliant, because when you've earned that credibility and respect that Guardiola's got, he can walk in and tell. And I know for a fact, by the way, the whole club is absolutely deferential to Guardiola. They literally built this club for him in its current format. And honestly, the power he has at Man City, he fucking runs that place. He really does. He really genuinely does. But you're right, mate. It's a good thing. And also, Richie is getting into deep stuff. He said, UEFA FIFA needs to be reformed and the UK government needs to implement 50+1 rule or something that gives the fans, clubs, employees a vote. Fans always at the heart of it, and if this is the route, I'm all for it. But go on.
I don't think 50+1 will happen in England. I don't think that's the solution here. But I definitely think that the government will. So this is the other thing about the Super League. This was their last chance, because you've seen the reaction, and I guarantee you, Stefan said this on the pod. I'm sure he'll say it today. That they will enact legislation to stop this. To stop the clubs ever attempting to do this again. So it won't happen again, because now there will be legislation.
Oh, they fucked it. They fucked it.
Yeah. Their dream, their 20-year dream, Perez and all those guys, their 20-year dream of a European Super League, it's dead now. And not only is it dead, and this is the part where I want to celebrate and really feel like celebrating. For me, from day one, the idea that you could just turn up, be shit in your own league, and just turn up and get the money and play in Europe was really disgusting, right?
Well, and that was it, as Rohan said.
Yeah,
it was Americanized. The fact is, we kind of we resisted it, Rohan. We resisted it, and that's the important thing. And and Johnny, once again, Johnny, thank you so much for Sportman this morning. So when Pep saw that we get to the Champions League, his blood pressure probably went up by a lot.
Well, can you imagine? This is the this is the point. Like, can you imagine? They called him and they've said, "Hey, Pep, so we're joining the Super League. We're actually going to start next season. UEFA are going to be really angry. You know that game you've got against PSG next week might not happen now, lad. Come on. I mean, who was? They all drank the Kool-Aid. They all drank the American Kool-Aid, and they all thought that this was going to be like some, like, you know, and it sickens me when you think about how unprepared they actually were, that they really just thought that by just having a bank guarantee for 5 billion quid, that everybody would just fall over. You know what that shows? There's some things you can't buy. You know what it shows? It shows that in the end, when it comes to life and the world and us as people and humans and our like relationships and stuff, there's some stuff you can't buy. You can't, you know, the reactions, the visceral reaction. Seeing Gary Neville calling the Glazers scavengers on
leeches and scavengers. Yeah.
Seeing Gary Neville say, whether you work for BT Sport or you work for the BBC or you work for Sky, you've got to unite. Seeing Jamie Carragher say, these Americans need to be run out of town. We've done it before.
He even on Sky blamed Sky for the Premier League as well. He said we did it back in fingers, so Sky is just as complete. Carragher said that on the punditry. And I know it's a bit late to it all, but it's better late than never. Genuinely better late than never.
You know what it is? You know what it is? When you begin to say this stuff out loud, it makes it much harder then to... We've lived through a period of disinformation. We've lived through an age where FFP is the best example of disinformation. The big clubs brought FFP forward. Now you know why, lads. Everybody now knows why they brought FFP forward, because they wanted this thing that they just tried to do. They wanted the guarantee of that money every year. That's it. That's the only thing that they were interested in. They're not interested in the sanctity or the safety of the game. They're only self-interested. And I think that this is the big thing that I hope will come out the other side of this, is that people begin to realize that, like, all the propaganda that your clubs feed you, you know, this means more, like, you know, like we are all, and I include myself, in this. Yeah, we are commercialized. We are not supporters in the traditional sense. We are, consumers.
Ahsan,
We consume their product.
we're just numbers on a spreadsheet. We really are, unfortunately. And let's be honest about it. And I'm sure deep down there are people within the club who care about us. And I'm talking about the people right at the front line, that kind of stuff. And they will be. And they're only humans. But at the end of the day, I'm customer 0, 1, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12
Definitely.
out of millions. And that's it. And that's all I am. And we are. And we have to be aware of that. Now, our own Joe Butterfield as well. Big love to Joe. Good morning, mate. He says, I asked this question to Dan yesterday. Where do you guys stand on defending our owners now? We spent the last decade taking bullets for our owners, and this is our reward. And do you know what? That Joe's asking the difficult questions, man. I'm not leaping to the defense anymore personally, and I know people watching this channel are Man City fans and they want to hear that. Someone else can go for fight for them if they want to, but I'm sorry. I'm not calling for the heads, but personally, I'm not taking the call. Either. I'm not doing it, and I'm not putting my energy into doing that. I'll defend the players. I'll defend Guardiola because they come out with this credibility. But I'm not going to sit there and pretend that I am not just a customer, and I'm not going to sit there and do that. They're maybe not the worst in this. They've definitely been.
I don't think you can discount the good things that they've done. I totally take Joe's point, right? So absolutely. Right. Look, I've said it. What they've done, disgraceful, completely disgraceful. Everybody's owed an apology from Guardiola to every single supporter that has not just defended them, but defended the idea of the club and the league and every football supporter in general. They owe an apology to the wider footballing world, not just to us. But then beyond that, look, this is the point. When you say well, I'm not going to defend the owners anymore, this was a convoluted attack on the owners, lads. We end up here because first they try FFP, right? That doesn't work, and they're like, wait, hold on. So how do we control this? How do we stop this? Yeah.
Can I just answer that?
The next thing was the Super League, and because we were already in, we've done it. Yeah, we've crossed the Rubicon, and we're now a big club. So they can't exclude us now. Yeah.
Do you know what my problem is? And I understand all this. I'm sorry, I need to interrupt because I think it's important. My problem isn't with the business decision; it's how they dealt with it. It's the fact that they didn't
100%.
fucking dare to. The fact they didn't dare 100%. To tweet about it. The fact that they put out that pathetic one-line removal of it all. And I'm sorry, that stuff matters. The fact that they left Guardiola to deal with it. I'm sorry, it's 100%. Weak. It was cowardly. That's weak. What my problem was. Is
that the owners or is that Soriano? Is that the owners or is that Soriano? Is that Manchester or is that Abu Dhabi? That's my question, because I've got the feeling it's Manchester.
I don't know the answer to that. Even being totally honest, you're right.
I think it's Manchester. I think it's Soriano. I think it's Omar Barada. I think it's absolutely Khaldoon will have been consulted on it, right? But ultimately, Khaldoon will have said, you run the football club. What do you think? This is your call. You guys got to make this call. It's a big thing, yeah? I think Soriano and those guys have made this call. Again, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when I say this, but I know somebody who works inside the offices, like the executive officers.
Yeah, same.
They said to me yesterday that the quote was, the people around Ferran have said the good thing about Ferran is that he's not afraid to make a mistake and he's not afraid to then own up to it and dial it back. So, and this was before City pulled out. This is before City pulled out. So this is when I'm having a conversation about me going, somebody's basically talking to me about the De Bruyne injury, and I'm going, mate, I'm not interested. Don't send me any more messages from inside Manchester City Football Club until the football club has seen some sense. Because you're talking about Villa and De Bruyne and Paris, and I'm going, I'm asked, clean this mess up. And so then
Aguero to Barca happened yesterday, apparently, and I did. I've never even seen anything. Jenny never even seen about it. But that's where I stand. I need to feel there's been an apology, and it hasn't been yet. And until I've seen their full deck of cards and they've laid them out and they've shown their hands, and if they come out and say that, look, this was purely business. It's just once again, it's the Glazer thing. The Glazer quote on our website, and then not even daring to have the balls to actually put it out on social media because they knew that we were going to care that much. If they knew that much, fucking own it up to it. That's all I'm going to say.
What do you want next, Steve?
Do you know what?
I'm interested in what you want, what Joe wants, the people who feel because for me, I'm going to make a separation. And for me, the separation is going to be, you made a mistake, but you've stopped, right? You heard us. And therefore, I don't think you've undone everything that you've done in the last 10 or 12 years. I'm not so judgmental as to say all the goodwill that you've generated in the last 10, 12 years is completely wiped out. You've got to rebuild it. No, they gave me Pep. They've given me the club that every other supporter dreams of. So within the context of that, I can be a little bit more generous. However, I totally get it if somebody on the other side, like Dan, goes, Ferran needs to fall on his sword. Knobheads need to come out and apologize. If somebody feels like that, I'm right behind them. My question is, what would make you feel whole again?
I won't know the answer until I've seen it. That's what I will say. But right now, all I know is I definitely feel hurt and betrayed as a fan, and I definitely feel ignored. And I want an explanation, and I want it from the heart. And I want it to be brutally honest, and I want it to be like I want it to be thorough. And what I will say, by the way, is I'm not a supporter for Ferran Soriano. I don't give a fuck about Ferran Soriano, and I mean that from the most honest way possible. I'm a Manchester City supporter, and I support the players. And right now, I support Guardiola because I go for it. But I don't support executives. Like personally, I don't. They'll come and go, and maybe they'll still be here when I'm old and grey or whatever. Well, I'm getting a bit grey already. But in general, like what I will say is like I've always been a Manchester City fan, so I guess ultimately I can probably switch off to them in the future, and I will do. And Mooney said it really good last night because I asked him like, how do you feel about Manchester City now? And he went, to be honest, I'll know as soon as we score a goal again, and if I celebrate it, I probably, and that's perfect. And I was like, that's when I'm back in again. I'm like, Joe up, that he's probably nailed it there, and that's probably how I will feel. But right now, all I know is that maybe I'm still angry, man. Maybe I feel like viscerally angry still, because I do, because I felt emotional, man, and I know you did as well. And I felt betrayed, and I tell you what, it's like you do forgive and forget because your family fucks you over sometimes, and you do forgive and forget and move on. And I know I will do, and I know that makes me a hypocrite. But what I will say is that right now, regardless of how we're all feeling, and regardless if we're all going to accept it and move on, which I suspect we will do, we still deserve an apology, and we still deserve it from the heart. And even if it's the heart is like, well, it was a business decision, it wasn't personal. And do you know what? Do I believe them because they will talk to us? That's it. Yeah, that's it. I just said. Like,
would you believe, like, if they put, like, so for example,
well, it's better than nothing, isn't it? It's better than nothing.
Yeah. Let me float something to you really quickly. Like, let's say that, like, the Athletic or one of the writers that City like, let's say they do a big piece and they say in detail, we were blackmailed, that Chelsea and City were told last Wednesday or last Thursday, this is happening. So you either get on board or you'll forever be on the outside, right? And they also knew when they signed up last week that they were just going to wait for the reaction. And if their own supporters, like, basically what I'm trying to say to you is that if they said their intention was always to let the Super League announce it, gauge their own supporter reaction, and then just kill it dead if they felt the reaction wasn't what they wanted it to be, you're not going to believe them anyway. Like, you see what I mean? That, like, whatever they say in the end, you're just going to go, yeah, whatever, lads. Like, you still had Joel Glaze on the website. You still signed the letter. You still have Florentino Perez talking on our behalf. Like,
I believe in life, and I believe this is a principle. There's always a combination of words, and you're a writer, so you know exactly the power of words. There's always a combination of words, if they hit the right tone, that can solve any single problem. And I don't know if they're capable of that. I don't know if it's too much, but what I do know is that I want them to try, and I want them to mean it, and I want gestures, and I want something, and I want it to show that they actually get these fans, and we aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. I don't know if they'll do that. I don't know if it's possible, but I tell you what, if I was advising that was a PR strategy, they can hire me for free if you want in Man City. I'd be like, get out there and fucking mean it. Like, genuinely get out on the steps outside the Etihad. But they don't care. But get on the fucking steps. Yeah, get out of the front. Speak to them with a megaphone. Get on the pedestal. And I agree they don't. But that's
Ferran and all those guys. Ferran and all those guys, right? One of the things that allows them to do their job well is that they're pretty cold and unemotional about City because they don't support City. They're all Barcelona fans. And the interesting thing is, I don't know if the audience have seen this. There's a very old BBC documentary. There's a really old BBC documentary which followed around Joan Laporta as he was getting elected the first time round in 2001 and 2002. Cheeky and Ferran feature very, very heavily in that documentary, and it follows them around for the first 6 months of that season. It's worth a watch just to see those guys. I think it's at Ferran's wedding, or one of them, they're at a wedding and there's a Barcelona game on, and they're all crowded around a little TV watching the Barcelona game. And they are the board of directors of Barcelona, and they're at a wedding. And the thing that fascinated me, and the reason that I always kind of refer back to that documentary, is you see what happens when you support the club. The relationship is different. Their relationship with Barcelona was completely different from their relationship with Manchester City, because they supported Barcelona. So, you know, when Barcelona were conceding crap goals, when Barcelona were losing games that they weren't meant to lose, when they had to make those tough calls, when the supporters were not happy, they were there because they were supporters of that club. So everything resonated deeper. And I'm not saying that, like, I'm not saying you can recreate that. And I'm not saying that, like, all the other executives at all the other clubs, they don't support the club that they work at. Just, it's an interesting contrast in terms of, I think Ferran and Cheeky and all of those guys, if they look within themselves and they think back to their time at Barcelona and they think of some of this stuff had it happened at Barcelona, I think that they would have more of an emotional need to connect with the supporters, to explain,
I agree,
to say, look, we made a mistake. More than, like, that Barcelona have got that whatever that phrase is, more than a club, right? So you guys have come from that culture where, you know, it's about the socios and it's about the supporters, and then you tried to do this and now it's fallen apart. Maybe I don't need a heartfelt apology, but for even if there's one City supporter who needs a heartfelt apology, they should do it. Khaldoon should get on a plane, come to Manchester, sit down with Chris Bailey or with Rob Pollard.
Make an effort, man. Make an effort. That's all I want.
Hey, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I'm sorry.
Take time out of their day, and I'm sorry, but once again, it's like there are people, even though they're not Manchester City fans, that have been in that club for a long time. Immediately, my head goes to people like Brian Marwood, who's been there since 2008 or something like that. I'm not saying he's a City fan, but he's been there for a while, man. He slightly does get it. You know, you should understand. He also understands English football fans, at least. I mean, he was quite literally, you know, he was a footballer at a decent level. So people like that should be, who have had their ear, by the way, at least should be saying, make an effort, because it'll matter even if it's fake, you know. And either way, maybe, to be honest, I probably won't even care in 2 weeks because that's football and I'm aware of that. But either way, I'm running out of time. Go on.
There's also already an element of them all trying to cover their backs. So I found it pretty distasteful that City and Chelsea yesterday were arguing about who pulled out of the Super League first. It's like, are you for real? You're gonna try and brief the, oh, I did it first. Oh, I did it first. Like, honestly, fuck off. Like, that's not cool. And now, like, you know, John Henry, like, oh, look at me on the website, like I'm doing an interview apologizing because somebody it's like, don't try and one up each other. You've made such a big mess of this, right? That there's nothing you can, in my opinion, there's nothing that you can do that dials this back emotionally. Practically, you've dialed it back, but emotionally, the damage is done. The only thing I can say is like being in a relationship and you come home and your partner goes, I'm shagging somebody else, right? Once you've said those words out loud, that's done now. So whatever happens,
it's never the same again, is it?
From it,
it's
but
never
it ain't
the
going to
same
be
again.
the same. That's maybe a little dramatic, but that's how I feel.
No. There's a few comments we'll get to because obviously, thank you so much, guys, for the super chats. Sid says, "Hey, honestly, the hypocrisy of Sky Sports, in particular Gary Neville, is so in your face. It's insulting. No one did imagine Pep's reaction of the players that they were the bloody first. But that's people are going to hypocrite. What I will say is, in general, is like I do actually give Gary Neville a little bit of respect for going for it. It maybe has self-interest in that. I don't know. Maybe it was he likes the spotlight or the sound of his own voice, but I can't really talk on that. I've got a YouTube channel for crying out loud. But either way, what I will say is that, there's an element of like, I get that. I get it is insulting, but maybe they start to own onto it. Maybe this becomes a line in the sand. Maybe. Thank you so much for the comment. Mehmet reckons the board was somewhat coerced into this. Definitely. I think that's probably true. Roughly, from a business sense, out of duty. Yeah. Definitely. Once again, doesn't excuse anything, but it makes sense.
Can I say one more thing? Like when he says like the board were coerced into it, like you got to understand practically why Chelsea and City were coerced into it. Commercially, Chelsea and City don't need what the Super League.
I heard Stephen say that. Yeah.
The Super League basically is there to jack the valuations of those clubs so they can then be sold on. Chelsea and City are owned by people who aren't desperate to sell the clubs or make a profit. They actually are prepared to sit on the asset for 10 years or 20 years. So they didn't need the Super League. They didn't need to go there. which is probably why it was brought to them at the very last minute and basically delivered as, you either do this or you're never getting in, because we're going to invite somebody else. Because that was you needed to kind of frighten City and Chelsea, or at least coerce them, as he rightly says. Sorry, go on.
No, you're right. Johnny wants at least 20% for the clubs. I'll be honest with you, I think we need more than that, if I'm being totally honest. I think 20% doesn't have the power as that we think it does. But I get where you're coming from, mate. But I think if it's going to be that, it has to be 50+1. It has to be. Otherwise, it doesn't hold the weight that we think it does. Richie says, big love to Richie. City owners have lost my trust, but maybe in time they can earn it back. But if we had the American owners, there would be no chance. That's fair. I think that's all fair as well.
I'd be out.
100%.
I'd be out if we were owned by a hedge fund. That type of neoliberal capitalist, like American guy, I'd be out right now. I'm telling you. I was nearly out yesterday, and I think we've got the best owners in the world. But I was really like, I had my coat on, I had my foot out the door. I was literally like, I was ready to say to Claire, we're going to have so much time from here on out. Because
mate, I was planning Stockport fan TV, for fuck's sake. I was there like, Stockport fan TV,
I was genuinely like, I'm going to support another football team. I'm going to support a real football team, not one of these Disney things.
I didn't actually know. I thought, I'm joking about that, but thinking, will I actually support a football team again? I had no idea what I'd do, but that's how crazy it was. But either way, Sir Alan Pet Mancini, big love, mate. He says, Brian Marwood is a great bloke. He hates when City lose. I see it when he's in the Imperial in Melbourne, watch City when he comes to Melbourne. Trust me, he hurts when he lose. I believe that. Marwood, from what I can tell, is actually a decent guy, and I'd not be surprised by that at all. But you need people
His longevity at the club speaks volumes about what kind of guy he is.
That matters, and that definitely matters, and like you do need that because they do have the ear of these people, and it's important. Big love to you, mate. And Ollie's saying, final question, because I have to go because I'm going Cornwall in a few minutes. So like,
hi,
Nicola, hey, good morning. Ace said hello. Me and Nicola are off. Nicola's doing all the packing, so I'm going to go do this. But I had to chat to Ahsan because I wish we could chat for 2 hours about this, mate, because it feels like that kind of occasion, doesn't it? But either way, what I will say,
more things are definitely going to happen. This ain't over. Like, this is just the end of that side of it. There's a whole other thing that's going to happen, I think.
And by that, in my opinion, I am not surprised. If that's true, I'm not surprised, because I think all the Premier League and Champions League wanted was just them to come back home. I think they wanted the prodigal son to return, and after that, they don't really care. And I think genuinely it'd be as simple as that. Unless you've got anything more to add to that, man, I think it's probably as simple as that, isn't it?
It is as simple as that. And the only last thing that I would say is seeing that statement from Seferin yesterday, welcoming City back into the European UEFA fold, was as nauseating as the Super League announcement. I mean, these guys could not be more out of touch. I know, final thing. I know that we all obsess.
No, it's fine,
the business of football and all that sort of stuff. But maybe one of the lessons that I'm learning from this is that we should just watch 11 against 11 on the pitch and just like put a lot of this other stuff, try and, you know.
Do you know what? It's why I've never made a video of financial fair play, because I don't understand it. And I've genuinely never, I just don't. And if I don't understand it, because I'm not interested in it as well. I don't like talking about money in football. It's never interested in me. Not because it's not relevant. It's just because I'm a football fan and I'm not an economist. And I've never been good at defending the club's owners, not because I didn't want to, just because I don't understand geopolitical affairs. I don't understand. I'm a football fan. I'm from Manchester. And final question, Ahsan. Score prediction for tonight. After all that.
Wait.
Yes, there's a game of football tonight, man. Fucking hell, mad, eh?
On my life, so there you go. Like I was somewhere else. Oh wow, City play today. Class City play tonight. Forgot to say that.
Do you know what? You don't even have to answer it. It's just a fucking realization.
I've got no idea.
Mad,
you know what? I hope that the players put in a performance for Pep after the semi-final. I hope that I hope for Guardiola they put in a real performance, because I think he deserves it.
I agree, man. I agree. And to be honest, one thing I will say is at least we know deep down, this is the last thing I'll say, at least we know deep down we can support the players. We can support the players and we can support Guardiola. You know, and that matters. Because Pep went against him, though, by the way. Pep went against him. And if that doesn't deserve our respect, then what does? Literally, Pep went against. Pep stood up to that, said, nah, this is not what us want. This is not what the players want. It's not what the fans want. No. And that's good. Yeah. And he did it for football, not just for us. He did for all football fans. And he did. And he knew what he was doing when he said that, and Pep's always been a principled person. Right now, I generally have to go, but Ahsan, you're a legend, mate. football.
legend.
Manchester City are still alive here, so like we're still alive, and that matters. Guys, go and follow 9320 Pod if you don't already. They got him to 10K last week. Long live 9320 Pod as well. Go and get there. Go and give them a listen. There's loads of great guys involved in that, as you know by now.
Can I plug the podcast we did yesterday with Stefan? If you're
you can plug whatever the fuck you want,
the commercial side of what the Super League was, what they tried to do.
It's an incredible listen.
All that
sort of stuff, very clear,
very straightforward. It's on our SoundCloud. Go at the 9320 Pod timeline. Check that out. If you're a member, or if you become a member of the 9320 Player, which is £4 a month, then Stefan will do another podcast for you guys either this afternoon or tomorrow morning, which will look at what happens next, what happens to UEFA. Because obviously, the clubs left the ECA a few days ago. The new Champions League, they don't agree to it. All of these top 6 clubs and all of the big European clubs. So there is still a lot more stuff that's going to happen, and Stefan is going to be right across that, and we'll do more videos over here. Steve, you got to go. I'm sorry, I'll stop talking.
No worries. My phone's ringing for some reason. Anyway, Ahsan, you're a star. See you later, man. And legend. Guys, I'll catch you on a bit. I might do a video later from Airbnb in Cornwall somewhere. We'll decide. Anyway, see you in a bit. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.